So I got my Banana Republican shirt on. All right. Okay. Everything looks 5x5. Got my spare battery. I'm prayed up. Got my medicine. So, hey, Lily, how are you? So, let me see what's going on. So, you know, people are good at saying they're sorry nowadays, but are they really sorry about anything? You see, the hard thing for my generation is my generation remembers an America that worked well, you know, a government that functioned rather well considering its size. People were polite. You would go to a movie theater and a movie was 25 cents. 25 cents, and popcorn was like 10, 15, and 25 cents for a great big barrel of popcorn. A soda pop was like a dime or 15 cents, something like that. And you could be entertained for the whole afternoon. Nobody threw stuff on the floor, and you looked around in the theater and most of the people were like in suits and ties or a clean white shirt and a tie. Nobody had profanity or anything like that because we were always told that we were going to hell. You know, we were going to hell if we even looked the wrong way. Back in my generation, you were going to hell if you left the water turned on the bathroom. You didn't need one of these bathrooms where the faucet automatically turned off and all that craziness. You knew that after you use the water, you turn the faucet off. You know, after you, when you went to leave a room, you turn the light off. And man, if you forgot and you went to school and the teacher wasn't trying to be your friend or trying to make everything interesting to keep your attention, you know, while you're disrespecting the teacher on your cell phone playing a video game and you know the teacher's trying to beg you to learn something. And a teacher got in trouble a few years ago because she handed out McDonald's applications to some of her students that weren't doing well. And of course, he went home and told mommy and daddy because that was mean. That was mean. And so the teacher got in trouble. But her point being was if you don't learn, you know, you're not prepared for anything in life. You're not prepared for a good job. When I went to school, we had Latin, we had algebra, we had geometry, chemistry, we had social studies. We had all of these courses that would prepare you literally for anything up to almost being a doctor or a lawyer. You know, you could go to a public school and learn enough about architecture because of mathematics and calculus and all that other stuff. And we didn't have computers, we didn't have calculators. We had a little piece of wood with scribble on it that was called a slide rule. And when you went to do a mathematical problem, you used the slide rule with the numbers on it to figure out your problem. Not that I could today. I think I'm going to buy a slide rule next month when I get a little bit of money and see if I can still remember how to do it. Because we did awesome problems back in the day with the slide rule. They sent the men to the moon on the slide using a slide rule. They well, let me retract that. I don't really believe that we landed on the moon in 1969 for a plethora of reasons. I believe that it was staged in a on a sound set because the computers were too slow. They didn't hold enough information to do the calculations and they didn't do them fast enough, and they didn't do enough of them. If you had a lunar module that was trying to touch down without crashing, it has to have a whole bunch of fast calculations as it's trying to land, especially if the surface is uneven or if there's a crater underneath, to figure out how much extra thrust to make up for the crater, that kind of thing. There's no way that happened, you know, back in 1969 with magnetic memory architecture and particularly the fact that they were using ground computers for that the space program, where telemetry would have to be sent back to Earth, and then it would have to be beamed back to the moon, you know, because the computers on board were just not fast enough or contained enough memory and all of that other stuff. I know my first computer was minuscule, and I bought it to be a duplicate of the computer at work for two reasons. In case the computer at work went down, and so I could learn the program of the computer at work at home. And it was $3,500 for a computer that nowadays, you know, couldn't even do Windows. It was a DOS machine where you had to feed it the commands, and you had to type in like add line or directory or sum, you know, or auto sum, or you had to know all of the commands in order to. It was just a blank screen with a little blip in the corner, and that's all it did, was sat there and looked at you with that blip, unless you knew all of the magical words to ask it to do something. Nothing to do with Windows, and it was very noisy electrically, to when I turned it on, it scrambled the TV sets for my neighbors. So what I did was I took a old rabbit ears TV antenna and I put it behind the computer, and I grounded it so that it would absorb any of the electromagnetic energy coming off the power supply in the computer, and it would take it to ground, and not bother my neighbors' TV sets and stuff so much. And that worked. It worked. I also did an experiment recently on an LED camper light lantern. Because, if we get hit with the electromagnetic pulse, I wanted to see if the flashlight would still work after an EMP event. And I got my answer when I put the coil and and hooked it up to power and put it close to the lantern. The LEDs popped and fizzled and fried. So to my mind, what that means is that when the day comes and there's that EMP event that everybody's talking about, you either need an incandescent flashlight or you need to have a flashlight that's put in your Faraday cage for after the event is over. Because like I said, when I experimented on this lantern and I put the coil up next to it, close to it, all of the LEDs started to fizzle and pop and go out. So that would be useless in an EMP event. So everybody's got their finger on the button. If you want to know the real deal, go to sites like Canadian Prepper or Monkey Works. Monkey, WERX, is a good one. New York Prepper is good. Full Spectrum Survival. He's a little bit dramatic, but good channel. Real GS News and Grand Supreme News Channel, Luis Santiago. And if you go to his channel, please be polite because he has a speech impediment. But he's a really nice guy, hardworking, young. He's got a bunch of kids. He works 2 jobs plus his YouTube channels. Very hardworking young man. So he deserves our respect. And you can get news from him, an update about every 45 minutes. And of course, we're having the same old stuff happen. We have a flood of people coming into the country. Nobody knows who they are or where they're from or what their intentions are. Most of them are military-aged men. And cities have been having a whole bunch of problems. New York had a couple of cops get beat up by immigrants. The man who punched me in the spine and was playing the knockdown game, he was an illegal immigrant. And I was merciful to him. I didn't call the cops because he would have been arrested and deported. And so I've been a prisoner in my room for over 5 years now after he decided that I had triggered him by my looks and because he didn't like gringos. So he came up and decided to punch me in the spine. But in any case, recently, I've been trying to get a new laptop for my YouTube channel to bring the quality of the channel up, And so I ordered one on January 31st. They shipped it by UPS. UPS handed it off to the post office. They call that Sure Ship. Sure Ship. Yeah, right. And so the laptop got lost and wound up in South Carolina. So I called QVC up and ordered a replacement laptop. And that laptop is AWOL, And it's so ridiculous on so many levels because I put my phone number on everything. So if the delivery person had any doubt about where to deliver the package, they could call me like Amazon does every so often. I'll get a call from the Amazon driver. But U.S. Postal Service, they don't give their delivery people a phone. And I'm sure that the delivery person has a phone but doesn't want to use their private phone. So, hey Shadow, what's up? So it's so ridiculous. It's like that movie where the Teslas are banging into each other and just piling up. I got 2 laptop computers that were supposed to be coming my way for almost 2 weeks ago, and they're lost like Charlie on the MTA. Okay. That's nice to know that you love me. I appreciate that. My family was never huggy kissy. And one day I was visiting after my parents had unceremoniously thrown me out of the house at 15, and I was a good kid, and I worked a full-time job since I was 14. I went to school until noon, got off of school, went to work till 10:30 at night, picking up trash and pumping gas, that kind of stuff. And my father, since I was getting all beefy and bulky, he was afraid of me because he had put his cigarette out on me like I was an ashtray, just very nonchalantly. It amazes me how he thought that was okay to take a big drag on a cigarette, get it nice and orange, and then take the other finger and lift the bottom of my shirt up and crush the cigarette out on my belly like I don't have a say in it or anything. Just no big deal. Crush the cigarette out on your kid, push him down the basement, actually punch him in the face and knock him down the basement stairs, and then come down and stand over top of him and beat the crap out of him like you're in a bar fight. So my family was never huggy kissy. And I called my father Buck. I called my mother Alice, or Son. And, she had all these problems when she got older. And I told her, I said, hey, son, you need a car. I'll get you a car. So I got her a 1971 block long Pontiac Grand Prix, black with the white interior, gorgeous car. I drove up, she came to the door, it's too big. I went back and I got her a Pontiac Parisienne, little smaller. She came to the door too boxy, doesn't like the sound of the engine. So I told her, I said, look, son, I'm gonna try one more time. And I came back with a 1971 Ford. It was a Copo or whatever, Galaxy 500 cop car. Green on green on green with a police interceptor motor, which was, I believe, a 352 4-barrel. Really sturdy police interceptor motor. And we went down Twin Brook Parkway, and I told her, I said, Moms, a 71-year-old woman can still go to jail. You need to slow this car down, because the clock was going backwards. We were going so fast. And man, when she touched that the power brakes, that car just stood on its nose and almost ground the bumper on the pavement. But I told moms one day, I said, I love you. And she was like, oh, well, that's good to know. Thank you. That's nice. Just cold as ice. And I was kind of a feral personality, not socialized. And then I went to work for Mr. Sam's company, and his mother, who was a lovely lady, it took like 20 minutes to get in the office and get to work because she was like, come here, boy, and give me a hug. And she would give me a great big hug, and I would have my arms just flaccid down at my side, not knowing that you return the hug and all of that. But she knew deep down, she knew, and she was going to socialize me and teach me about the true meaning of real love and friendship and fellowship. I made a terrible mistake when my father put me out about not going next door and asking the neighbor if I could rent her basement. Hey, Jeremy, how are you? So if I had done that one thing, my life would have been totally different. And the very nice lady would have seen to it that I became a doctor, because everybody in her family was a doctor. And she was a fascinating lady. She was actually part of the French underground during WW2. And her husband was very cheap. And they used to fight in 3 languages. They used to fight in French, English, and Spanish. They go back and forth yelling at each other. And then they would go around the house and close the windows after they had already started fighting so that the neighbors couldn't hear. And her husband was horribly cheap. And they drove around in a 40 Buick split window. The thing looked like this ugly scarab bug. It had an antenna in between the window, and it looked just like that bug off of Starship Troopers. Ugliest car I've ever seen. And I was like the angel of death when I was a young boy. And it was like whoever I got around after a while would pass. And so they had a really bad snowstorm in Washington in the early 60s. And this man used to smoke his cigarettes on a toothpick so he could smoke the cigarette all the way down to the filter. He smoked it on a toothpick. And rather than pay $2 to have the gas station put snow chains on his car, he decided to struggle them on himself. Yeah. Well, the reason I tell things like this, Jeremy, is as an older person, I tell them so that young people don't make the same mistake. Like I said, I made one critical error that ruined my whole life. And I didn't have anybody to tell me what I should have done. I just learned in hindsight. But I could have prayed and I could have asked God. So the guy was struggling the chains. Oh, okay. So your girlfriend snatched you, huh? All right. You got to be careful doing that. There's a lot of young men sitting in jail because of the girlfriends. So I went through the same thing when I was a young man. the Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, stuff. Back then, the freaky deaky parents. I had a friend who was 16, barely 16, a friend in school, and his parents built him a wet bar in the basement. He had his own room in the basement, his own phone, TV set, which back then was unheard of, and a bar. And his father smoked a cigar, but he went to the gym and he took his vitamins. He said, as long as you do whatever you want to do responsibly, it's okay, like drinking and smoking. So we would go over to his house and drink and smoke as young kids. My aunt was the same way. You could go over to her house and drink an old fashioned with her and smoke cool cigarettes. But God help you if you showed up in bare feet. I showed up in bare feet one summer, and she told me, she said, don't ever come to my house. Don't ever come to my house barefoot again like that. So I got to check my blood pressure real quick. But Billy's parents had this party, and all the kids were down in the basement drinking. And this lady came down. She was a cougar. A cougar being an old woman who hits on young people. And she was a cougar. And so,
please remain seated and refrain from talking during measurements and keep cuff at the heart level.
She was a cougar, and she decided to come down and dance with Billy. And her daughter started to cry because she was dancing with Billy when the daughter wanted to. You have the same one? I have two of them. So I get everything from Amazon.
Your blood pressure is systolic 150.
So I got to take a BP pill. It's been staying high because I'm aggravated over. I've been aggravated over the United Parcel Service and the post office losing 2 laptops. I ordered one and they lost it. Wound up in South Carolina. And so I ordered another one. And that one's AWOL also. My phone number was on everything, so they could have called me. But see, in the Postal Service, they don't give their people a phone. And I'm sure that the person's not going to use their private phone because they wouldn't want to be aggravated in the future with somebody calling them. So I understand that. But I remember in America that used to work so well. Everything was clean and people were polite. I never heard the F word. I never heard the F word until I was like 25. I didn't know what a zit was because we weren't allowed to say stuff like zit or the F word. My father would beat you to death, almost beat you to death for cussing or drinking. And I never heard that stuff. And he called me, he had a real filthy nickname for me. And I thought he was calling me Woody the Woodpecker, like I was being silly or something. And I asked the men at work, I said, what does this mean? And then, of course, yeah. So, of course, the men started to call me the same thing. So I just had never been raised around crudities and stuff. And one of the jobs that I had was working in a gas station with these roughnecks, and they would spit and fart and burp and pick their nose and smoke cigarettes and cough all over you and everything. I was never used to that as a child. It was so weird how my father was, where he would almost beat you to death for one thing, but then other things were let slide. So I got to check my log and make sure I'm not poisoning myself. So 10 o'clock. And I'm not giving medical advice, but to live a good long life, you always want to log your medicine. You always want to log it in so that you know exactly what you took and when you took it and how you took it. And that will keep you out of the hospital. People that say that they had their blood pressure taken, a year ago. My blood pressure changes several times a day. So, is that Carrie Lynn for the win or Carmen? It's Carmen, right? So, I worked for this one company, and there was a Carmen there, a lady who drove a garbage truck, and she was very rough. And in any case, one of the men was talking about karma. He said karma is a real B word. And they thought that everyone was talking about Carmen, because this lady drove a garbage truck and would spit out the window and curse and throw garbage at the customers when she would get mad. And she almost cost the company a horrendous amount of business. So I'm logging in my medicine. And right now, all I'm doing is I'm putting the brakes on my blood pressure, slowing it down a little bit. And after I get done making the video, I'll do some yoga. I'll do some yoga breathing to make it come down some more. I've just been aggravated with the laptops being lost and not being able to monetize my channel and everything going on in the world. I mean, if you want to get the real deal, go to Canadian Prepper, and he does a 45-minute world situation report. And believe me, it's not looking good lately. It's not looking good. So a lot of Christians are saying the rapture is coming soon. Canadian Prepper is not a Christian by any stretch of the word. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy, but he is stone atheist. And for him, he's worried about when the BOM bead finally drops. But we believers in the Lord Jesus Christ believe that before that actually gets started, maybe one or two will drop somewhere, but we believe the rapture is going to happen because all of this stuff is written in prophecy. It said that they will leap over the mountains. It's talking about rockets in the Bible. It said they will leap over the mountains with sounds of chariots and horses. That's the way they describe the crackle of rockets back in the Bible. I got to switch my weight, fam. Hang on a second. It's very hard being bedridden and wheelchair bound. It's very uncomfortable because the body is not designed to lie down for 24 hours a day. And some of you talk about my face being swollen up. That's kind of one of the end of life. It's kind of one of the end of life things. When my father finally passed, he had a head as big as a pumpkin, from fluid and all this other stuff. And the cardiac cough, which is the lungs not pumping out the fluid fast enough or efficiently enough. And a few other things that are signaling the winter of life. You sleep longer and you sleep more deeply. And if you're lucky, you get a nice gentle push into the next reality, which is eternity. Everything happens so fast in life. I remember being young like it was yesterday. But yeah, I had neighbors on both sides of me who passed pretty much while I was going to visit them. And my one neighbor passed putting chains on his car during the bad snowstorm of the early 60s. Washington got like 5 feet of snow, ridiculous amount of snow. And I told my father, I said, Buck, Mr. So-and-so, he's passed out on the front seat of his car. Buck told me, go inside, boy. And back then, everybody was called boy. They make these movies and they make it out to be a racial. When you were young, everybody was boy. My father had these long, pointy fingernails, and he would tap on your head, and he would say, now that I got your attention. And I would say, Buck, you don't have to do that. You got my attention. You don't have to disrespect me or crush a cigarette out on me. So I learned very young, very, very young, like 8 years old on, to do side jobs cut grass, shine shoes, polish furniture, clean houses, whatever I could do to stack some cash so that when things got tense around the house, I could bounce. I ran away one time when I was 6, and the cops brought me back home. But then after that, my parents were like, yeah, he'll come home when he's ready, or he runs out of money, or he's hungry. He'll come home. So I was more like a boarder at my parents' house instead of a family member, because my father always said, boy, if you can't get along with this family, I'm going to take you right down to Junior Village in DC and drop you off. And so that was his threat. But see, when you're getting the crap beat out of you, it comes to a point where you can't be disciplined because you're fearless. You've already had the worst of the worst happen to you. My sister held a knife at my belly when I was 11 years old and threatened to cut me like a fish. I was sent to a learning camp when I was 13, and you arrive at camp and you're told to do exactly what you are told to do. Don't say anything, don't do anything else. And so they give you these 2 empty buckets, and you stand in a line, and the camp guy tells you something, and you say, yes, sir. And he's like, what did I just tell you? I told you not to say anything. Yes, sir. So you've said yes, sir, twice. He's telling you to shut your mouth, not say anything. Don't even say yes, sir. So they take a little bit of water and they fill the buckets up. And this was old school discipline. And I guarantee you, after you standing there in the hot sun with 30 pounds of water on one side in a bucket and 30 pounds of water in the other bucket on the other side of you, when they finally let you put the buckets down, your arms are just like spaghetti where you can't even lift them up. And one boy wet the bed, so they took the boy and the mattress outside and sprayed them both down with a hose in front of everybody to embarrass the boy for wetting the bed. And so breakfast would come along with these beautiful, thick pancakes and scrambled eggs and stuff. And the older boys would take like 5 or 6 pancakes. And by the time it got down to us younger boys, you'd have maybe a pancake or 2 if you were lucky, a little bit of scrambled eggs, and maybe a piece of bacon or sausage. And then you'd still be hungry, and you'd see the other boys had wasted most of their food, which I thought was very dumb, but I didn't give my opinion. And this one counselor, Steve, always had 2 boys under the right arm and 2 boys under the left arm. And he would throw himself down on a bed with the boys or pull himself down on a sofa with the boys. And so my camp photo album, I was looking through it and I said, daggone, in the background there's Steve lying with 4 boys. Every picture had this guy, Steve, with little boys tucked under his arms. So, what's up, Mike? How are you? So Dr. Singh has not checked in. Usually Dr. Singh or his son checks in. They're from India. Gosh. That beta blocker made me tired. But you dare not sleep after taking it because it intensifies sleep apnea, which is waking up and gasping during your sleep, where you stop breathing while you're sleeping, and then you wake up and you go like that. So I used to post a picture of my doing that, but people didn't like it. They said it upset them. So I don't do it anymore. But always got somebody who's got to type in some gibberish, some knucklehead, and then hit enter to overload the chat, the comments, so nobody else can share. Really nasty people, some of them. What a shame. What a shame. So what I'm going to do if my laptop ever gets here and I can sign into Creator Studio, I'm going to make my comments subscription only, to where somebody has to be a subscriber for a while before they can comment, because I keep getting shotgunned by these people, that hop on my channel and then type in some gibberish and just sit there and hit the enter button. And they think that they're so brilliant, Can you call me Papa like you don't have a grandfather? Sure. But God is your real father. I had a hard time believing that God was good because of my earthly father, what he did to me, using me for an ashtray and a punching bag and stuff. And my family hates for me to talk about this, and it's too bad, because they just think that he was better than sliced bread. Yes, they did. But he would come to me with his poetry to impress me. Like, why of all people are you trying to impress somebody that you just pushed down the basement stairs? And normally after he did something like that, he would buy me a really expensive gift, like a little black and white TV, which I never used, and a very expensive record player for Christmas, which really hurt my brother, because my father spent the better part of a whole week's salary on my Christmas gift. And then he got my brother a carton of cigarettes. And I don't like to gesture anything, because gestures can be misinterpreted. So I've had like times where I've talked with my hands like Donald Trump, and you accidentally make the OK sign, which nowadays means 666. So that's why you don't see my hands in the frame, because I don't use my hands anymore during a conversation. Gosh. So I had a good long prayer time today. And anytime when sickness or disease or anything sneaks up on me, I go right to God's word. I say, I shall not die, but live to declare the glories of God. And I believe that's one of the reasons that I've lived so long. And I got a copy of this book called God's Promises, and it's really, really good. And you can read through that and know that God promises you several things by covenant, to prosper you even as your soul prospers, and to heal you and not harm you. I'm still working on my healing. I'm sorry, that beta blocker is starting to kick in. So I literally have to sleep with the lights on so that I don't sleep too deep and never wake up. And I got a mechanical wind-up clock. So that if the power goes out, that I can still time my medicine, which for me is very important. So I'm lying here in bed with no covers on to keep a little bit cold. And that way I won't accidentally fall asleep. So, but in any case, that's what's going on, is that the world's right on the brink. Everybody's got their finger on the button. And old Pop-Pop's trying to survive for another day. So I'm going to go, fam. Pop-Pop out.